Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com, and today we're going to talk about something that narcissists have been doing, but more importantly, why they've been doing it to us, okay? I found a song. There's a band called Tonight Alive. Great music. I've never actually read the lyrics. It just, what I've noticed about me is like I'll fall in love with the band or a couple of their songs, and I won't know by it, and then maybe weeks, months, even years later, I'll finally read the lyrics, and I'll be like, oh. Everything this band talks about, their lyrics is about surviving narcissist abuse. They may not use those words, but it's, I'm going to read the lyrics off. Okay, hold on a second. All right. Because you can't back down when I tell you how it is and always will be. I'm actually listening to it right now. And I won't stop now for the sake of the doubt that does not belong to me. Here I am, I'm proud to stand for more than living scared to death. And even if I fail, I'll prove you wrong. 'Cause I'm not afraid to live. I'm not just waiting for the end. 'Cause we're born for more than this. I'm not just waiting for the end. Don't care if we're different. I'm not just waiting for the end. I suppose it's not your fault. You're just like everyone else. Set of rules and demands. Does that not sound like dealing with a narcissist? Whoever wrote these lyrics to this song, they've definitely dealt with someone who's beat them down and all that stuff. So let me get to what this is all about. Let me turn this down a little bit. All right. So here's the deal. The lyrics really pointed it out really clear. There's one sentence that really stood out for me. It was, "'Cause I'm not afraid to live." This is why narcissists have been attacking you and going after you, is because they are terrified of living. Their whole existence is about developing this fake persona, this fake being, this fake act, this fake everything. Their beliefs, their values, their rules. Everything is fake. Everything is made up. They don't even believe in what they're talking about because they're terrified of living life. That's what all of this is about. So here's what happens. You come along, bouncing along, meeting people, greeting people, enjoying the sun, enjoying going outside, enjoying the beach, and they hate that stuff. Because that's all about the 3D world. Now, the 3D world is your right brain. The right brain is the living brain. It's about the 5 senses: see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. It's the 3D world. Well, narcissists are stuck in that 1 and 2 dimensional brains, the reptilian and the logical brain. They are absolutely terrified of opening up to reality. So the challenge is when you come along, all of a sudden, reality steps into the room. It's like my pastor said, because he had noticed that a lot of people were mean to me. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't even know those people. He's like, Michael, you don't have to say anything or do anything. You don't have to know those people. They're doing it because you're like a light. It's like when you walk in the room, it's like the light just went on. You're literally like a walking light. So the example, and so I've heard this before, and I just kind of rolled my eyes like, and I think I literally said, what does that mean? Because I've heard it a lot. It means, here's how he explained it. He goes, Michael, think of a bunch of people, peers, or people that you know that are doing drugs. I'm like, yeah. He goes, have you ever noticed they don't like to be in bright rooms? Like they dim the lights, they pull the shades. I'm like, yeah, I've noticed that. He goes, they like to be in darkness because they know that what they're doing is wrong. They know that they themselves don't want to do this, and that they think it's wrong. I'm like, okay. I'm like, but I don't judge them. He goes, Michael, it doesn't matter. He goes, when you walk in the room, it's like you're this light, this big bright light, and all of a sudden it shines the light on all their wrongdoings. I'm like, but I'm not trying to do that. He goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, because you're alive and you're living. See, what happens is you reveal them to themselves. You never judged them. In fact, you were probably the only person in their life that actually just accepted them for who they were. But the fact is, you're a light. It's like they've lied to themselves so long about the things that they've lied to themselves about drugs, about not going after their dreams. And it's like, I can think of a guy right now who every time I see him, he's always saying, oh, well, I'm going to do this thing. And he's been saying this to me for 3 years. And he works a minimum wage job. And I'm just like, well, when are you going to do it? He's doing nothing towards his dreams. And so here's the deal. When you walk in making videos, making content, writing books, working on your website, taking action, getting things done, it's like they have to look at themselves and go, man, I could be doing that too. And then no, because they might have conflicting beliefs. And that's a thing that holds a lot of people back. Like my brother, we were always told that, well, you have to be born special. You have to be born in a certain family or in a certain way. You have to be gifted by God and all this bullshit. And that's what it is. It's bullshit. You have to go after your dreams. So without even realizing it, just by standing in line at a grocery store or going to class or whatever, you reveal people to themselves, and you're just sitting there reading a book, minding your own damn business. And that's why they get up and will yell at you and start a fight with you and scream at you. You're like, who is this freaky person? And even their friends will go, dude, what happened? You just totally lost your shit there for no reason. That dude was just sitting there. They're like, I don't know. It's like it forces them to look at their own lies and their own beliefs that they've been holding for life, for dear life, right? So one thing about me in sports was I was always the smaller guy, always. I was always shorter. I was always lighter weight. In every sport I ever did, from boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, football, whatever. So it was like these people would have to look at me and go, damn, there's no excuse. That guy's doing what I want to be doing, but I'm bigger, faster, taller, stronger than him, and I'm just not doing it. See, but before they're like, oh, well, I'm not big enough. Here comes Mike, who's 4 inches shorter. Well, I'm not strong enough. Well, here comes Mike, who doesn't bench as much. Here comes Mike, who can't run as fast. Here comes Mike, who didn't have a family to support them. And all these things. And they're just like, but he's doing it. It takes away all their lies. And so they have to it's like, you didn't do a damn thing but walk onto the team. They have to look themselves in the mirror and go, I could have done it. And all this stuff that I've been saying is a bunch of bullshit. And that's when they flip out. This is why, in church they talk about the living God. There's the living God and there's the dead God, the logical God, okay? So when you shine a light on their trying to hide from, their whole thing is about making up excuses. Like, oh, well, I could have been a football player, or I could have lifted weights, or I could have been a champion boxer, or I should have. And you come along, I'm going to give you some really good stories to actually explain this a lot clearer. So you come along and you start doing things. You start a business. You start winning championships. You start getting good grades, whatever it is. And their whole reality gets shattered. Now, here's what I mean. When I was a kid, this went on, oh God, even when I moved out, it still would go on. So whenever we would watch the Donnie and Marie show, this was like in the 70s, I think early 80s, they would sing, I think it was like a weekly night show before you went to bed. It was like a family event. They would sing songs. And my mom would go, well, they're just born that way. And I'm like, what do you mean, Mom? Well, the only reason why they're so famous is because they were born that way. They're born special. And I was like, what? And whenever we'd watch the Olympics and the Americans would win gold medals, or my sister and my mom loved to watch ice skating. And then whenever they'd win, they would kind of get upset and be like, well, they're just born special. They're just born that way. So what they're essentially doing here is they're constantly and consistently reinforcing their lies. They're to literally brainwash, hypnotize. It's a form of hypnosis, by the way. You can do it in reverse, by the way, to win, to be successful. But to reinforce that, oh, well, the reason why I'm not successful, the reason why I'm not winning awards and being a star is because, well, here's my excuses. Let's repeat and rinse and re-repeat and continue to say this and reinforce it to each other. It's a support group of failure. It literally is a support group of failure. Let's gather around, dim the lights, and let's lie to each other, and let's say the same lies over and over, and therefore we're right and other people are wrong. But I'm still special and I'm a star. No, you're not. You're just a liar who likes to turn the lights off and hide from yourself. And this is all I ever heard my whole life. We watched the country music awards, And when they're handing out awards and, oh, they're so special, they're so lucky. I'm like, why are they lucky, Mom? Well, they were born that way. And it always confused me. And this went on to the Golden Globes or the Grammys, Whitney Houston. And it was this constant message of, whenever they'd win an award, oh, they're just so lucky they were born that way. They were born that way. And I remember just looking at her like, and one day, I had just won the state championships in boxing, Silver Glove state boxing champion. And I remember looking at my mom like, no, Mom, anyone can do it. If you work hard and you dedicate yourself, you can achieve these goals. You can, oh man, I didn't know it, but that infuriated her. She woke up 6 o'clock in the morning, yanked me out of bed and just beat the hell out of me. And it was, now at the time I was a kid, I didn't understand what it was about. But as I look back, because my mom actually told me later on why she beat me so much. It was because of, saying things like, no, you could do it, Mom. Anyone could do it. She didn't want to hear that. So here's the thing. You have to see the comedy of it all. It is just a freaking clown show. So here my mom is constantly reinforcing to all these children, oh, you can't do it because you're not born special, and we can't do it because we're not born rich or we're not born famous, and blah, blah, blah. And here I just won a state championship, and that was part of the reason why she was reinforcing, because she normally would say it once or twice, like during a show, but she had said it like 10 times. She kept looking at me. It was kind of like this stern look. Now, as a kid, I didn't understand what was going on. Now, as an adult, understanding narcissism, just like, oh, I get it. Here I was, the goddamn shining light of victory, sitting in the same couch in the same living room while they're all trying to convince themselves of why they can't be successful because they weren't born in a special way or in a special family or whatever. And here I was. And then on top of it, just to really rub it in. Now, as a kid, I didn't know I was doing this. But it's like pouring coals over their head just by being honest. And I was like, no, if you work hard, you can do anything. So that was the last thing that they wanted to hear. And here's the deal. And that's why they were so goddamn pissed off at me. And I never understood that. See, I'm just really realizing this as I'm making this video of why the hell would they were just infuriated with me. And I didn't understand. And then what happened is I got into my 20s. I started studying NLP, taking Tony Robbins courses. And it's all about questions. So I finally was just like, so what did I do that was so horrible? And my brother was screaming at me one day. He just randomly bumped into me. And I'm like, what did I do? And he's like, well, Well, here's the deal. He couldn't come up with one thing. Because he couldn't say publicly out loud in front of other people, well, you were winning championships. You got good grades and people liked you. They couldn't say that. So when I turned 20 years old, yes, my mom, because I went through an awakening. I was like, wait a minute, this is all bullshit. So I invited her over and I asked her, and she just flat out told me, she goes, we couldn't stand the fact that you were in the newspapers 2, sometimes 3 times a week, and you were always winning events and doing this and that. She goes, and then I go, was I cocky? She goes, no, on top of it, you were humble. And then she said, and you were nice. She goes, I couldn't stand it. And I'm like, wait, what? And she was just pissed off. So I went to my sister's house the next day and I said, hey, I had this really weird conversation with Mom. And she goes, yeah, we had a really good laugh about it. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes, Michael, we couldn't stand you. I'm like, but what did I do wrong? I was always there for you. She goes, yeah, you were. You were a good brother. I go, so was I mean? She says, no. She goes, it's just that you were always doing stuff and winning, blah, blah, blah. She goes, we couldn't stand it. We hated you. So people, that's what you're dealing with. And when you realize that, it's so much easier to walk away and just go live your life and enjoy. All right, so here's the deal. They literally hated you because you're awesome. Literally, that's why they hated you, is because you're freaking awesome. Now, on my Facebook page, I'm always saying, I'm awesome, because I know how narcissistic that sounds, but it's sarcastic as fuck, and it's a joke. And the other thing about it is I've heard people say, oh, it's because you're a good person. Oh, it's good. Now, my brain could not process that. Like, wait, they're being this mean because I'm a nice person and I work hard and what? That doesn't make sense. And that's probably where your brain's at right now. But when you get it, it becomes a freaking joke that inspires you and motivates you. And the last thing is, they don't want you to know how awesome you are. In fact, they go out of their way to make sure you think that you're this lowly person, that you're this horrible person, when deep down inside, they want to be like you. They wish they were like you, but they're not. So here I am posting this stuff on my on my social media and Facebook page, and they're probably going fucking nuts, like, fuck him. You know, it's just like, and the thing is, like, fuck it. It's just like, I gotta tell you something. Not only did it turn everything around for me, make me laugh, it inspires the fuck out of me, because any level of success that I achieve, even making this video, drives them up the wall. And all those years, it was like, like the Bible says, and then on top of it, you're being nice to them. It's like pouring hot coals on top of their head. I never understood that until about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm like, oh, I get it. So when I was succeeding and achieving, and they were being mean to me, and then I would return kindness, it flipped them out even more. That's why my mom said, and on top of it, you're nice. I couldn't stand it. And she just lost it. So after I won the state championships in boxing, Silver State Boxing Championships, the next morning, my mom beat the living crap out of me. And I was really sad, but I didn't really understand what was going on, because she didn't tell me why. She told me years later when I was 28 why she did that. But so I went to the school. It was about 10 in the morning or something, maybe 11 a.m. It was a weekend, Saturday, I think, maybe Sunday. And I went there to be alone, because obviously no kids are going to be on school on a weekend. My brother found me. He was a year and a half, 2 years older than me. And he's all pissed off. I'm like, well, I wonder what's wrong with him. And he walks right on my face. You should just quit. You should just quit. I'm like, quit what? What are you talking about? Boxing. I'm like, why? He goes, you suck. You're no good. Well, he knows I won the state championship the night before. I'm like, what are you talking about? I go, I just won the state championship. He goes, oh, you suck. He goes, you should just quit. You're no good. And I remember, I go, what are you talking? I go, well, I may not be like Muhammad Ali, but I'm pretty good for my age limit. No, you suck. And I remember he just took off, pissed off, and I was just like, I didn't get it. Well, here's the deal. My brother Gary was fucking talented. This dude was born. This guy, he was naturally fast. He was unbelievably fast. I'd only seen one guy in my life beat him in a race ever. And that wasn't until we got to high school. But that guy was unbelievably fast. And my brother could pitch. He just showed up to baseball one day, and he just struck everybody out. Now, he never showed up to practice. It was the first game of the season, and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, what do you mean? I'm pitching. I'm like, what? Because he never showed up to practice. I didn't even know he was on the damn team. And I looked at the coach and go, you can't just let him walk out there. He goes, he's our starting pitcher. I'm like, he's on the team? He goes, yeah. I'm like, what? And the coach kind of like, he looked down, because we had a real strict rule that if you missed 2 practices a week, you couldn't play that game, right? And he hadn't showed up at all for weeks. So here's the deal. Here was a naturally talented guy whose brother was outshining him only because of one thing. He wouldn't practice. He just refused to practice, and eventually it caught up to him. By the time we got into middle school and high school, suddenly he wasn't beating all these other kids that were working hard. So here's my point. These people, they're hiding from themselves, and so then they have to hide from life. Because look, they're going along making up all these excuses. So, okay, I'll give you one example. One of the things about my brothers and sisters, especially the younger ones, we just heard this not every day, but constantly. Oh, you got to be born special, otherwise you can't be successful. You have to be born that way. You got to be gifted. You got to be special. And the meaning, we're not, they are. And that was the definite message. So I'm sure this message got into my brother's head because it was so repetitive. It was like hypnotic. And this went on for over a decade. Not only that, being hypnotic, being like a belief installed into his brain, but the other side of the flip coin was, if you succeed, you're going to get the shit kicked out of you. You're going to get mother's whip. And it was a very, very painful experience. It was not just a spanking. So it was a belief that was installed, backed up by absolute fear of very intense pain on a very consistent basis for a long time. So one thing I noticed with my family is once everyone gave up on their dreams, they stopped getting beat. Except me, of course, because I was too stupid to do. Honestly, I was too dumb to realize what was going on. So I just kept chasing my dreams and I kept getting beat and looking at my mom like, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? And of course, she never verbalized that because you can't. Now, here's the funniest part of all, and I'm serious. I thought she was telling me that the trophies I was bringing home were not big enough, okay? Because she'd always compare it to my dad's trophies, which were huge, right? And so what happened was it turned me into this little Navy SEAL. I was running 7 miles a day, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, doing 300 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, 300 jumping jacks, and then just sprinting 7 miles and then training like a psycho at boxing practice and on, getting straight A's. So I completely misunderstood the message of, no, I want you to give up and quit on your life and on your dreams, when I excelled and I turned into this freaking achievement freaking machine. And that's all I did. Whether art, music, choir, grades, sports, it didn't matter. I was the winner. And I did not know it, but man, that was just infuriating my mom. So the more she beat me, the harder I worked, because I was trying to make mom happy so she wouldn't beat me anymore. But so she accidentally motivated me. So I'm sure this got stuck in his head, and he just, his belief was well, I'm not born special. I wasn't born up on stage and getting handed a Grammy. But I remember as a kid just always like, Mom, you got to work hard. And I would always say, they weren't born that way. They had to work hard. They had to practice every single day for 2-3 hours for years, for decades to get good like that. And my mom would just roll her eyes and walk out of the room all pissed off. So here's the deal. I guarantee you, this is what's been happening to you. There's people out there in the world that, for whatever reason, they don't believe in themselves, or they're just too, and this is a big part of it, they're just too damn lazy to work their ass off, and they're a coward. They don't want to lose. They don't want to fail. They don't want to make any mistakes. So guess what? They're never going to go anywhere. The fact that you keep hearing this message you got to make mistakes to get better is kind of a joke, because it's kind of a no-brainer. Really? No shit? Didn't know that. It's even as a little child, that. It's even little kittens, little deer, they know they're going to stumble. They know they're going to fall. It's not even a question. So the fact that we have to tell a part of society, well, failure is part of learning. It's well, yeah, no shit. Well, guess who that's made up for? It's made up for narcissists, by empaths, or by other people who don't quite understand. Narcissists are a different breed. This is a group of people who constantly make up excuses, and then what ends up happening, after constantly hypnotizing themselves and repeating this over and over and over, they hypnotize themselves to believe that they can't succeed. So guess what? They don't even try. And here you come along, smaller, shorter, weaker, not as fast, can't throw the baseball as accurate or as fast as they can, and on, and you end up doing better than them, and they're like, oh shit. And then everyone looks at them and go, wait a minute, why is Michael winning all these championships and you guys aren't? In fact, that actually happened when I was probably a teenager. Would say, well, why aren't your brothers and sisters as talented? I'm like, well, and I didn't at the time, but now I'd be like, oh, they got brainwashed. They got brainwashed in believing you got to be born special, and those people were born like a special breed or something, and they weren't. They're just normal people that had a dream and that pursued it. You want to be successful? I just gave you the recipe. Have a dream, something you're passionate about, and freaking go after it. Pursue it with everything you've got, with all your heart and soul. And part of it is, life becomes easier when you delete the negative people from it. So that should be your number one priority. Constantly picking weeds, cutting people out of your life. Anybody who is cutting you down, being negative, dragging you down, making you feel insecure, or any of that bullshit. Because here's the deal. That's who they are, not you. So cut them out of your life. I'm going to end this video with this right there, because that is the message. I'm going to put the lyrics down below. I might even read some off. But the main one is, here I am, I'm proud to stand for more than living scared to death. And even if I fail, I'll prove you wrong, because I'm not afraid to live. That one sentence, because I'm not afraid to live. I'm going to put the lyrics down there. This is a band called Tonight Alive, and the song is called Waiting for the End. I'll put the link to the song down there too. So here's what I'm trying to say overall. It's like you never did anything wrong, and yet you were this light the minute you walked onto campus, the minute you went to class, the minute you went to a party, the minute you hung out with your friends, the minute you came home from a sporting event or whatever, or even school. In fact, you don't even have to actually do anything. You don't have to win a championship. You don't have to be some famous artist or musician or anything like that at all. The difference is this: you're living your life. You're out there engaging with life, and they're doing everything they can to block life. They do drugs, they drink alcohol, and on and on. And not only that, but they do a lot of mental games, like they're on their cell phone constantly because they cannot deal with life or reality. And what happens is when you don't develop the ability and skills and tools on how to deal with life and life's issues, whether it's just talking to someone who misunderstood you and having better communication skills to get them to understand you, or just knowing when to walk away or whatever, you never develop those skills. So your whole life becomes this act of blocking and faking and hiding and having just a litany of excuses not to live, not to win, not to achieve, not to go after your goals. Whatever that is. Maybe it's just going to a restaurant and enjoying life and laughing with your friends, or finding the right husband, or whatever. There's a lot of people that just are like, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm afraid of getting hurt, or I'm afraid I might fail and look stupid. See, it's not necessary. Okay, again, you don't have to be a millionaire or be a rock star or be an actor, some famous, or win some Golden Globe or, whatever award. You don't have to, even on a smaller level. Like, okay, so for example, for me, whenever I was in between sports, one of the things I would do is I'd get on my BMX bike. And I had two really good friends, and we would go riding all the time. But there was days when I would just wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd get on my BMX bike, say on a weekend or during the summer. I lived in Napa Valley. Napa Valley is just absolutely beautiful. It's probably the most beautiful place you'll ever visit. It really is, especially right now between April and about probably October, November, before they pick the grapes. It's just gorgeous. So I would get on my bike and I would just be absolutely fascinated with everything from we'd have this, it's called like what do they call it? Overcast. It was like fog, but it was up above, probably about 50 feet in the air, maybe more. And it would burn off around noon or about 11 a.m. And then the sun would just beat through with this heat. So it'd be kind of chilly and cold. But I knew by the time about 11 o'clock rolled around, it was going to get freaking hot. So I'd always wear shorts and a t-shirt. And I'd be freezing cold when I'd first leave. But I knew around 11 o'clock it was going to get really hot. So I'd go riding up in the hills in Napa, go up valley, and then go shooting down this really fast road because it was really steep. I can't remember the name of it right now. Something I think it was Oakville Grade maybe is what it was called. And it would take you into Oakville, and then you drive up to Yountville, ride your bike. So here's the deal. I wasn't winning any event, any award, money, or trophy, or getting in the newspapers. Here's the deal. It's not a matter of being, like Whitney Houston or, Donnie Marie back in the day. It's a matter of just living your life. It could be having your own garden, developing your own garden, planting your own plants, and that narcissist will look at you and they'll be like, wow, they're like really into that. It has nothing to do with other people. I bet there's things that you do in your life that you don't even know. It could be you do little artwork at home or little sketches or stuff like that, and you get caught up in it. When the narcissist sees that, it's upsetting to them because you're living, you're alive, you're doing something with your life. Again, I'm not talking about having some famous job or career. Another thing I had, okay, here's the thing with me. I have always, and I mean always, had hobbies. I've always had things like, when we lived in Wisconsin, I would just pack my stuff. I had, I'd have fishing poles, and I'd buy books on how to catch fish and how to tie knots for, so the hook wouldn't come off, because a lot of times the fish would keep pulling it. The damn hook would come off because the knot would come undone. And I would just dive into stuff. I'd get up at 5 in the morning and I'd walk down to the local pond, and I would go to the far part and go through this trail and kind of hike over stuff. I was just fascinated with life. And that's the thing is, narcissists wake up and they're bored. They can't stand themselves. They don't like life. It's because they're not doing anything. And here you come along, you go from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, and they're going, oh my God, I hate this person. You know how I know this? Because my sister actually said this to me. She's like, I couldn't stand it. You were always so happy. You were always doing something with your life. I'm like looking at her like, okay, like what's the problem with that? Because back then I did not understand narcissist abuse. I didn't get it. Because right now I'd say, well, why don't you go do something with your life and then just walk away? See, people, this has nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything to them. And I'll tell you something right now. You did not deserve the abuse that they poured upon you. You literally did nothing to them. You just went out and lived your life, and that shined a light on them. Because here they are in the same classroom, the same job, walking down, going to the same. It could be just going to the same freaking coffee shop, and there's someone in the corner passionately writing a book, developing a website, or developing an app or something. And it just pisses them off because it's like you're alive. You're the only person in the room that's not in a fake conversation talking about fakes. Okay, I've got it. So these people are always trying to convince everyone how great their life is. And I've never, here's another one that I've never understood until the last couple of years. And I think it's kind of sad, and I still, in a way, I understand it, but I don't. Is when people always tell you how great their marriage is, how great their relationship is. And I always just look at them like, why do you always tell me this? Like, I don't understand. And I'll tell you why. It's because the relationship's not that great. Okay? Otherwise, they wouldn't, well, I don't know, maybe they would. I can't, I'm thinking of 2 long-term relationships I was in. I've never once walked this, my relationship is great. It's like, why would you do that? Like, I don't get that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay? So, there's people that are constantly trying to convince anyone and everyone, even someone they just met, how great their life is and how awesome they are. Now, on my Facebook page, I joke around a lot, and it's because of narcissists. Like, look. A few years back, I became aware of what narcissists were, and it blew, I'm going to cuss here, people, please, I'm going to say that word. I'm going to say it, so prepare. It blew my fucking mind that they were just obsessed with telling other people about how great their life was and how I'm this and I'm that. And I just was like, what? Like, what? Like, in high school, here I was, captain of the football team, wrestling team. We were champions, went to state championships, did a lot of things, and I just never told anybody. And you get these guys trying to brag. Oh, I got one. I'm not going to say who. But this person would constantly tell me how great of a martial artist he was. I think he was like a blue belt or a brown belt or something. And here I was, a United States national kickboxing champion, and I never told him, ever. And what happened was, we had an event really close to where we lived, one city over. And I remember when I bounced into the ring, they announced to me, the crowd went nuts, and this guy and I happened to look down, and he had his arms up, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And like, why didn't you tell me? And I acted like I didn't, I couldn't hear him, obviously, but acted like I didn't know what he was saying. But I did. It's because I didn't want to get into this bragging competition. Okay. So here was this guy always going around town telling people how tough he was, and he never even knew that I was a fighter. So it was kind of a bit comedy there. So all I'm trying to say is this, guys, is even if you don't realize it, you're alive. Even when you meet someone new, you're just like, wow, who's this person? Whereas with them, they're just so worried about convincing this person about how great they are, and they never even get to know the person. And that's, yeah, that's another one. So one thing that I began to notice is that, like, this narcissist, like, I remember saying, like, you don't even know who I am. You have no idea who I am. And that was the funny thing about it. It's like they make up this thing in their head of who you are. And of course, it's always negative. And it just one day, it dawned on me. I was looking at this person, and I forget, it was something they said. And I looked at them like, I go, you literally have no idea who I am. I go, you're so far off. And they're like, what? Oh, I know who you are. And I'm like, no. This person had known me for about 9 months, I think it was, something like that. Maybe a little, yeah, maybe it was 9 months. But it just dawned on me. And so when I understood what narcissist abuse was and the way they think, I reflected back to all these people like, that's not who I am. What are you talking about? So it's because they're so caught up in how great they are and how horrible you are. They just make up these illusions all the way around. So here's the deal, people. You have more in common with the people in this picture, these famous, rich, successful, ambitious people, than narcissists do. Even if you just do a gardener. Here's the deal. Tony Robbins can see it. And you know what? Successful people can see it. No, people that are alive and doing something with their life. Because we're here to live. That's what the message is. You're here to live your life and go do something with it, okay? People recognize, have you ever heard that kings recognize kings? People who are alive recognize people who are alive. And they also recognize people who are not alive and who are faking and bullshitting their way through life. So there's two kinds of people. Those with their light on and those who turn the light off because they're hiding from themselves. Hey, this is Mike Colleen. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video.